I'm Karen and welcome back to my channel. Today I have a kind of a special video because last Thursday I was invited to the blogger launch event kind of thing for Krystal Sutherland's Our Chemical Hearts. First of all, can I just say that this cover is amazingly gorgeous. So on Thursday I went to London and I got to meet Krystal, and it was like quite a small audience, which was really nice because I saw lots of familiar faces and I got to meet some new people as well, which was great. So without any further ado, let's get into the footage.
From Townsville, Australia, a town, I know her bio by heart, a town that has never known winter, and we're very lucky to have her here. She's currently on her 3-continent, 4-country tour, like the Taylor Swift of YA. So she's off to the Netherlands next week, and this is her last UK event, so we're very lucky.
It wasn't in the beginning, but then when I had finished the first draft, I went back through and I was like, oh, I've done this at certain points throughout the entire draft. This is kind of what it's about. Like, he says that she's not a manic pixie dream girl, but he kind of wants her to be, and she's very much not that.
Well, I think that's a big theme of the book, is Henry wanting Grace to be someone that she's not, like him thinking, I can fix her, you know, I can be quirky and charming, and that can fix everything.
He's just seen one too many like Hollywood romance movies.
I love him.
And thinks that's how it works.
Can you tell him about the PowerPoint? Is that too spoilery?
He believes in grand gestures and love at first sight and stuff like this. So his grand gesture to make Grace fall in love with him is to send her a PowerPoint of why you should date Henry Page. Why you should date me.
It's so funny.
Because he's, you know, he's a little bit nerdy and awkward, so that is his grand gesture. It's quite cute.
But what's great is you'll see in Krystal's note at the end of the book, which is like incredible. When Krystal sent me her like note for what she was putting at the end and the acknowledgements, I was like, this is so well written. How is even your note at the end so good? So definitely read that, because she talks about how you give credit to some interesting Tumblrs, like such as...
There's quite a few really fun PowerPoints on Tumblr and things like this, things that potentially people have sent to other people. They were like, why you should let me touch your butt?
I know. I mean, there's a lot of kind of jokes and insights into kind of, not necessarily specific things like that, but kind of Tumblr culture. Like, Henry's really into pop culture. Like, how much of the... again, in those your acknowledgements, say thank you to the cesspool of the internet for all the things. Do you felt like that was just part of Henry's voice and character, that he would be really interested in kind of internet subculture?
So, like, in my previous unpublished manuscripts, which are terrible, I had really kind of tried to stay away from pop culture, because I was like, I'm going to write something...
You were also writing fantasy.
I'm going to write something timeless and amazing and fantastical, to be fair. And I never wanted to include like Facebook or iPhones, because what if they go out of fashion one day? And then I had this epiphany while I was reading Jane Austen, Pride and Prejudice, and I was like, she did not try and write a timeless book. She just wrote about the time she was living in. And the time that we're living in is so heavy on pop culture, and obviously Facebook and phones and stuff play such a big part in teenagers' lives. So I kind of went overboard and just...
No, not overboard.
Just put pop culture in there, just throw it at the page.
No, it makes sense. And I think it's things I don't think if you're not familiar with any of the pop culture references, it doesn't take away from the book, but if you know them, it's kind of like a nice little extra bit, which is really wonderful. Can you tell us a little bit about your next book, which I'm obsessed with?
I can. I'm way better at pitching book 2 than I am at book 1, as Katie knows. So my next book is YA contemporary as well, but it is more magical realism, so death is a character in the next book. And it's about this girl called Esther, and she believes that her family is cursed by death, to each suffer one great fear in their lifetime. So her father is agoraphobic, he hasn't left the basement in 6 years. Her brother is terrified of the dark, he can never be alone in the dark without lights on. But she doesn't know what her great fear is yet. So she keeps a list of everything that could potentially become her great fear, and she avoids these things at all costs. She has 50 things on the list. And then she gets pickpocketed by a boy, and they end up becoming friends. And they go out once a week together and face one of her fears so that they can check it off the list, so they know it's not going to be one of her great fears. And it is called... You're all going to have to remember this because it's a very long title.
Great title.
A semi-definitive list of worst nightmares. So the first time that we met, we went and had dinner and drinks at a little French restaurant, which apparently doesn't exist anymore, tragically, near Katie's place. And after a couple of glasses of wine, we were like, we're gonna make this our year, like 2015. We're gonna get agents, we're gonna book deals, we're gonna make it happen. I think we even threw in the
oh yeah, we did like the full thing.
And then we did.
We did. Crystal's book's out now. I'm out in January.
Ours comes out in January, and
yes, people, you can do it. Keep writing. Keep writing.
Just make drunken packs together and do anything you want.
But can you tell them about then your queering experience, because it was quite atypical.
Yeah. Well, yeah. So I was expecting it to take quite a long time. and Katie was helping me to like prepare, and you were saying, you know, don't be too disheartened. It's like,
I'll be here for you.
You know, if it takes, you know, 3 months, you're gonna get a lot of rejection. I'm gonna be here. I'm gonna help you deal with it. And I was very prepared for that to happen. So I sent out this first round of queries. I think I sent out about 12. And I was ready to be rejected. You know, J.K. Rowling got rejected however many times. I was like, I want to frame my rejection letters when I get them. I think it was about 12 hours later that I got an email from my now agent. She was like, yeah, I want to read this, please send it.
So it was very super exciting time.
Yeah, it was. And then I got my call from my agent. So the call, I don't know if any of you are writers here and you're querying agents, but the call is the thing that you live for. You can't see any of your life beyond the call. That's when an agent rings you to offer representation and says that they want to sell your book. And I kind of had I was going to a colour festival out in the middle of nowhere in the Netherlands. So I was covered in chalk and like dancing to this crazy Dutch music. And I noticed I had a couple of missed calls on my phone. And I was
from New York.
I
get the most panic messages like, I have missed calls from New York. I'm at this music festival.
Nobody has this number. Who is calling me? So I didn't have any fun at the festival after that. I was like, I have to get home. I have to call this number back. And I eventually made my way back to Amsterdam, called the number, and it was Katherine Drayton, who's now my agent. And we had a very good chat while I was covered in chalk. And she offered me representation. It was very...
But that was not your only also bizarre phone call, because then when you got your official offer for your US deal, that's also funny.
Oh, so because of the time zone changes, I was in Australia and my publisher is in the US, obviously, so I woke up, I think, at like 6:30 in the morning to all these frantic messages from my agent being like, get out of bed! What are you doing? Wake up! I've been trying to call you for half an hour! Get out of bed! We have an offer! So we had a quick chat, and she's like, I think they're going to make a preempt. And I had a chat with Stacey, who is now my editor. But it was also my first day of work in Australia. I'd just gotten back from living in the Netherlands. I was flat broke and I needed a job. So I'd gotten a job at the Body Shop. It was my first day. I went in there. I was like, I think maybe I'm going to sell my book today. So I gave my agent the landline phone number for the store, just in case she needed to get a hold of me. Because I didn't want to be rude and carry my mobile around and take a phone call.
While you're selling soap.
Yeah. So I was about 5 minutes into my first shift. I started at 11. I think at 11:05, the phone rings. My manager picks up and she's like, oh, she's just with a customer at the moment. Do you want to wait? And she'll chat to you in a second. I was just like, I'm the only other person working, so I knew this phone call was for me. I was like, you don't want this body butter. You just get out of the store. I'm busy. Get out. And I went and took this phone call, and I was walking around the back room, and we had this offer, and I was swearing my head out. I was like, holy shit! What? I walk out, and my manager, who has been my boss for all of 10 minutes, is like, what is going on in there? I was like, I just sold my book. And she's just deadpan, and she's like, you cannot leave.
I was like, Krystal, are you celebrating? She's like, I'm selling bath bombs.
Rubbing salt on people all day. And that's how I celebrated my book deal. I spent 7 hours rubbing moisturizer into strangers. So I'm a careful drafter because I hate editing. That's why. I mean, I like the big edits. So when you're doing big structural edits and it's just like you can tear stuff out and put new stuff in, that's okay. But I like to have a solid first draft, so I'm quite careful, which also makes me really slow, which is frustrating. I'm very much a pantser, so there's plotters and pantsers, and you either know exactly everything that's going to happen or you have a rough idea. And I usually know the beginning, and I know the end, and I have a strong main character, and that's all I go in with, and just kind of wing it, but take it slow while I'm winging it.
What advice would you give to writers?
I think this is a sentiment that you share, but finish what you're working on.
Yes.
We were listening to Garth Nix the other night talk about his writing process, which I found so fascinating, and he's written something like 32 books now. And he said, you know, if you were a carpenter and you made chairs and you'd made 32 chairs, you would know how to make a chair by the time you'd made 32 chairs. And he says he still doesn't know how to write a book. He still doesn't know how it happens.
I get to the end, it's like, what?
I get to the end, I'm still not sure how it happens. And I think that's very much the process for writers as well. And it so seems to be the case that everyone who sits down to write a book reaches a point where they hate everything they've put on the page. They have so much self-doubt. They're like, why am I doing this?
This is why you need writer friends, so they can tell you that you're not horrible.
And going to these events as well to find that it's like a totally normal part of the process. And I think learning how to finish a book is part of like learning how to push past that point where you hate yourself and your writing and you're wondering why you ever started doing this crazy thing in the first place. And it's just a natural part of the process, so get used to it because it's going to happen every time you sit down to write something.
Well, that's like my favorite one of my many favorite Laini Taylor quotes that we reference frequently. So Laini Taylor's many brilliant quotes. But this is one that both Krystal and I were like, when I shared it with her, she was like, yes, it's that. So Laini Taylor's just a great quote about when you have an idea, which is the best part about writing, thinking of ideas. It's like this beautiful butterfly, but writing it is like catching it with a butterfly net and hammering it on the page. And you're like, I killed it, it's horrible and ugly. And that is what it is, because you can't ever, you know, even if you're the world's best writer, it's not going to match up to this amazing thing in your head. And it's so tricky, and almost the better the idea is, the harder it is.
It exists in your head as this perfect thing, but you have to translate it into words. And that process is always going to leave it lacking than what, you know, you've got in your head. But if you want a book, that's unfortunately the process you have to go through.
Yeah, kill that butterfly.
Also, Laini Taylor has this thing called the slutty new idea, which happens to me every time I write it. So you get to this point where you like hate everything that you've written, and then there's this glimmer of this like beautiful idea, and you're like, oh, it's so beautiful, I need to write that thing.
It'll be so easy.
It'll be so easy, it's so beautiful. Maybe I should just abandon this and like go hang out with the slutty new idea and do that. But then, you know, as soon as you start writing the slutty new idea, it's going to be just the same thing over again. It's going to be hard.
10K in, you're like,
it's going to be smashing that butterfly on the page. So
I do think though there is, if you do ever like you know, if you're struck with a brilliant idea, because Laini also did it. I like this is I've like turned this into like, let's adore Laini Taylor. But she actually got the idea for Daughter Smoke and Bone when she was working on something else, and so she let herself have a cheat afternoon, because that's what you do with slutty new ideas, you cheat with them. And she wrote like the idea, I think a scene between Carew and Brimstone, and then she went back to her other project that she was working on, which apparently was like about ballerinas and Venus. Sounds cool. And she was like, I finished this. She's like, I'm not gonna let myself write this new idea until I finish this. So yeah, finishing is so important. Finish the things.
Something I found really useful as well was getting feedback on my writing. So sending my stuff to you and sending my stuff to other people.
It's so scary to send it to other people, especially when they send you stuff back and it's really, really good, and you're like, oh, damn it, I am as bad as I thought I was.
I think you really have to get used to having people comment on your work in this industry, so starting early and sharing your stuff with people.
Yeah, and being open to critique.
And calling yourself a writer. That's something that we struggled with for a long time before we had agents. Like telling people that you're writing and you're maybe gonna not go out on Saturday night because you want to write on Sunday is something that people do not understand when you don't have an agent and you're not making money off what you're doing. But you have to put that time in.
Yeah,
put that time and effort in.
It's hard, like I said, like people are like, oh, so they treat it like it's more just like a hobby or fun. They're like, oh, so you're not coming out tonight to write, like, oh, cute. And then you get a book deal and you're like, see now.
On Thursday. It was really, really nice to just be among your people, you know what I mean? And Katherine Weber chaired the event so nicely. She's just so lovely. Whenever she asks questions of authors, I'm like, I want to be there. Plus, I also got this advanced copy of Wing Jones. Oh my god, look how gorgeous it is. Like, I really can't wait to read this. I loved the cover reveal and I've been so excited for it ever since, so I'm so happy I got my hands on one of these little babies. So there you have it, that's it for today. Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to subscribe, and I'll talk to all of you very soon. Bye bye.